Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. David Cameron has set out his vision of a Greater Britain and has promised to spend the second half of his 10 years in power trying to tackle the country's deepest social problems. Speaking at the Conservative Party conference, he pledged what he called a national crusade with new planning laws to get first-time buyers on the housing ladder, and he set out plans to improve social mobility, reform prisons and improve the chances of children in care. The Prime Minister also launched a scathing attack on the new Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Our political correspondent Chris Mason reports. The family of the police officer who was killed by a stolen car on Merseyside on Monday have laid flowers at the scene. 34-year-old PC David Phillips was hit by a pickup truck during a police chase in Wallasey. 2 men are still being questioned in connection with his murder, and last night 2 women from Wallasey were arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. Judith Morris, head of Volkswagen in the UK, is being summoned to Westminster next week to face questions about the emissions scandal. Paul Willis will be grilled by MPs, who will also hear from the head of the auto industry body and the Transport Secretary Patrick McLaughlin. Volkswagen's new chief executive says they will start recalling diesel vehicles in January, including more than 1 million cars in the UK. Our industry correspondent John Moylan reports. It is television's most unlikely hit, but tonight the final of the Great British Bake Off looks set to draw the biggest TV audience of the year. 11 million people tuned in last week for the semi-final. Even more are expected to watch tonight as the last 3 fight it out to be crowned the winner. So how did a programme about puff pastry, meringue and chocolate become such a sensation? Our arts correspondent David Sillito reports. Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. The Home Secretary has announced a major shake-up of the asylum system to reduce the numbers who wrongly claim asylum in Britain while ensuring that the most vulnerable refugees from around the world are allowed in. Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. Surgeons in London have developed a groundbreaking procedure to treat one of the major causes of sight loss. Doctors at Moorfields Eye Hospital are using human stem cells to treat age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. If successful, it could transform the lives of thousands of people every year in the UK. Our medical correspondent Fergus Walsh reports. Vladimir Putin says Russia would consider conducting airstrikes against Islamic State targets if approved by the United Nations. President Obama and the Russian leader met for 90 minutes and agreed on the need for a political solution in Syria, but failed to resolve their differences on the future of President Assad. Mr. Putin described the meeting in New York as surprisingly frank. Barbara Pletusher reports. 18 British World War II veterans have been awarded France's highest military distinction, the Légion d'honneur, at a ceremony in London. They're being recognised for their role in the liberation of Europe. Many were just teenagers at the time and took part in the D-Day landings in June 1944. President Hollande has promised to recognise every survivor who helped liberate France. Our defence correspondent Jonathan Beale reports. Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. The iron and steel making plant at Redcar on Teesside is to be mothballed with the loss of around 1,700 jobs. The Thai-owned company SSI UK blamed a severe slump in steel prices but held out the prospect that operations could resume in the future. Union leaders have urged the government to intervene. Now, stargazers in many parts of the world were treated to this.